What is up, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Don't Say the F Word podcast. We are a pro wrestling and combat sports podcast where we do not use the F word when we talk about professional wrestling, and you shouldn't let your friends use it either. It's Saturday night. We just finished watching Ring of Honor Final Battle. Right now, we're catching the post-event media scrum. Um, Only because I'm just curious to see if anything weird happens, I guess, honestly. Tonight we also have UFC 282 with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. I think he may be the only person on that card who I know who he is, and that's only because he's been having beef with MJF, and somehow Paddy has managed to make himself kind of a big deal on YouTube with his vlog and having some beef with Ariel Helwani. I don't know who all checked out Ring of Honor's Final Battle. I think all the matches were really good. I think it was good matches. Didn't look like there was a huge turnout in the crowd, honestly. Place did not look profoundly packed by any means. We did see quite a few title changes happen there at Ring of Honor right now in the post-event media scrum over here on YouTube. Tony Khan is sitting with Claudio Castagnoli. He is the new Ring of Honor World Champion. He did defeat Chris Jericho in the main event of the show. I don't really know how I feel about the belt going back onto Claudio. It just kind of feels like, really, I guess, what was the point of everything? They started that media scrum off with Athena. She won her match. I'll be honest, though, I did not catch that match, so I can't really give you any insight of how that was. I didn't catch every bit of the event. I was kind of in and out of being able to catch it and had a lot of stuff going on. But I did catch Jericho and Claudio. Thought that was a very good main event. They really had some difficult shoes to fill in the matches they had to follow up after. I think that it was going to be impossible to follow FTR and the Briscoes, but somebody had to do it. But that match, that double dog collar match, man, it was messy. There was a lot of blood. There was a lot of hard spots, like a lot of just kind of very brutal bumps those guys took, and that match ended. And spoiler, if you haven't caught any of this, that match ended with the Gun Club. I'm thinking they're calling themselves still the Gun Club. Billy Gunn's boys, the Ass Boys, came out at the end of it after the Briscoes defeated FTR in a very brutal match. They came out and ran a little interference. Well, not interference, I guess. They just kind of did a run and attack to set up a feud for those guys. But the Briscoes are the new Ring of Honor Tag Champs. Claudio is the new Ring of Honor World Champion. I really would have thought they would have done more with Jericho with having that belt. I mean, he put out some great matches for sure. But I just kind of thought Jericho was going to be the guy they would utilize to get the TV deal for Ring of Honor. I'm not really hearing too much of what Claudio's saying. So I don't know what... I don't feel like there's anything really built up in ROH at the moment to have a reasonable feud with Claudio with anybody, honestly. It just doesn't really seem to me like he's got anyone to feud with to have him stand out as being like the main guy in Ring of Honor. I think it would have been good if they could have gotten Jonathan Gresham back into ROH. I think that would have been a good tie-in at the end of that. I don't think they're ever going to smooth that relationship over, though. It just doesn't seem like he has an interest in working for Tony Khan. But I think Gresham's a great wrestler, so I think he'd be a great adversary for Claudio, and they could have some legitimate reasoning behind it. But I don't know that we're going to find ourselves there. because I just don't think they're gonna be able to smooth that relationship over. Um, let's pop a headphone off here. Let's see if I can kind of hear a little bit of what they're talking about. Well, talk about that after because there's to me. So Claudio's referencing the fact that there's big plans for ROH. Um, I really hope that is the case. Like, I hope that they're able to do something really good with ROH. I still really kind of feel like it would be good to have part of ROH be the YouTube shows. Honestly, I don't know that Dark and Dark Elevation are really giving anyone like a solid platform. I think whenever you call it Dark and Dark Elevation, like, I think initially that's probably a good name. It was a good like inside thing. Hey, we're all part of the whole thing. We know these are dark matches. We know what's going on. And I think that those things were probably pretty good. I think now at this point it almost feels like the talent that's on Dark and Dark Elevation, it's almost like they're being looked at as lesser talent because they're on the dark shows. So like dark matches were ideally for people who were, developing, and they were, it was your tryout matches. And I think whenever you're doing that now, I think it feels like you're not doing something that's really at the high level, as kind of how we look at our AEW shows in general. If you're on Dynamite, you're kind of on a bit more of a big time show. You have people who still look at AEW as being small time in comparison to WWE, which I don't know, that may or may not be accurate. But whenever you're looking at Dark and Dark Elevation, you're definitely not looking at something that you're considering to be on par with WWE, right? And that's not a knock on the talent that's there by any means. I'm just saying from a fan perspective and probably from a casual fan perspective. If you're a competitor strictly on Dark and Dark Elevation, you're working your way to being on Dynamite. So it's a work in progress, I guess, in a way. And I think maybe if it was the Ring of Honor show, it would carry some more weight and it could show some credibility to that brand and look to set up that TV deal. If you could show you're getting millions of people to tune in every week to watch Ring of Honor on YouTube, why wouldn't they tune in on TBS, right? Especially if people are looking at Claudio like he's a big enough star to carry a promotion, which a lot of people like to say that he was in Ring of Honor. I mean, in WWE, it was, that huge testament that, hey, we have Cesaro and he's so good. And I don't know. I'm not sure that we had a lot of people who were truly believing that, I guess. If that makes sense. I'm not hating on him by any means. I think Claudio's a very good wrestler. I don't know that I think, he's a carry a promotion guy right now necessarily. He might be. I feel like they took the belt off him a little quick initially with the ROH title, so putting it back on him, I think, could do some good. But we'll have to see kind of how they do it this time around. So we mentioned the Athena. She kicked off the post thing, and she was the first title match. And she won. Claudio won. The Briscoe brothers won, which that match is and you got friends who are curious of what Ring of Honor is, and the Briscoe FTR match would be a good one to show them, especially people who may be lapsed and still holding on to what they thought the Attitude Era was, and maybe it wasn't. I'd probably show them that match because there's some hard bumps and some brutality utilizing those dog collars and those chains. So if you have people longing for the whole days of ECW and unprotected chair shots on WWE, I think some brutal pro wrestling like that's probably right up their alley. We also had Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Swerve Our Glory won, but Swerve had bailed on Keith and left him in the ring. I actually, at the moment, I can't remember the name of the team they were facing. Tyler or something. That was a decent match. Just seemed a little weird to me to put Keith over with Swerve, leaving him hanging in the ring. I understand we're building toward that Swerve Strickland Keith Lee feud in time, but I mean, if you're a Ring of Honor show, I think you should have had more Ring of Honor victories. We did have Samoa Joe win over on Juice Robinson, so Joe is still the king of TV. He still has the Ring of Honor TV title, and he still has, of course, the AEW TNT Championship. He didn't, of course, that wasn't on the line anyway, but he's still ROH champ, so he's still a double champ. So both of our Samoan Joes in our main promotion, pro wrestling, Roman Reigns carries 2 belts, Samoa Joe carries 2 belts. So I don't know why no one on commentary in AEW is making reference to the fact that they also have a Samoan with 2 titles, but I digress. We also had the Embassy take the 6-man tag titles off of Dalton Castle and the boys, as they should have. There's really no reason for Brian Cage and company of the Embassy to not have titles. Brian Cage should just have even more titles. I mean, he's big enough to carry all of them, so it should probably be the way that goes. On our social media, if you follow us, Don't Say the F Word podcast on Facebook and Instagram and over on TikTok, I shared a thing was tagged in it. It was sent to me about, do you remember what it was like whenever you'd be excited for Dynamite at the beginning of the week and you couldn't wait, and it seemed like there was so much anticipation going pay-per-view to pay-per-view, and that time in between, like, so much suspense was built up, and that there seems to be just something kind of missing from the way Tony Khan is booking AEW at the moment. And I've had some people tell me they don't feel that way, that they're still very excited, they still think it's a good product. Believe me, I'm not on the bandwagon of crap on AEW, because I'm an AEW fan, have been, I keep saying it, day one AEW fan, and still am. I love pro wrestling. AEW, join Ring of Honor. I kind of wish it was its own separate thing, but I'm still, this pay-per-view tonight was phenomenal. Great matches. And I love WWE, SmackDown, Raw. I haven't gotten back into NXT, and I keep trying to. But I do think there is absolutely something missing in AEW. Wheeler Yuta did beat Daniel Garcia for the Pure title, Ring of Honor Pure title. What I caught that match was good. Again, I was in and out of being able to watch it, but it was a good match. What I seen, I went back and caught a little bit more of it. Those two are great talents, but I just, what was the point of the Daniel Garcia experiment with Blackpool Combat Club? What was the point of that? To just throw him back into JAS and keep going with that. You're not going to change what JAS is. He's going to fall right back in line with Daddy Magic and whatever the shit the other guy's name is. Yeah, the 2 annoying guys, the 2 worst things on TV in AEW are Daddy Magic and his friend Numbnuts Magoo. I don't know what his name is, but they're just annoying on TV, and they don't benefit Daniel Garcia at all. I just don't understand what the experiment was. We all knew Danny Garcia was a wrestler, so, he made sense in Blackpool Combat Club. I understand you don't always give the fans what they feel makes sense, but I also truly don't get what the point was in, putting him with them to just go the other way with it. That didn't make any sense to me. I don't know. I wish it made sense. It just didn't make sense. Regardless of how much I wanted it to make sense, it just didn't make any sense. I don't really know where they go with Blackpool Combat Club either. I mean, they're saying they're going to keep them together. You got the ROH title on Claudio. You got the Pure title on Wheeler Yuta. So, I mean, half of Blackpool Combat Club is carrying Ring of Honor titles again. So we're right back to where we were just a couple months ago, before we had William Regal turn and side with MJF. Before we took the title off of Mox, this is kind of where we were at. So if half the crew are Ring of Honor champions, the other half of the crew are, we haven't seen Bryan Danielson back on TV, with the idea of him still being at William Regal's bedside, which I don't know, are we foreshadowing that Bryan Danielson's going back to WWE also? Is that the bedside that he's at? I don't know. That's just a speculation there. But I don't know. I don't know what you do with the club whenever you have two guys who should be who are champions of an entirely different promotion. Mox is not a Ring of Honor wrestler. But technically, I guess neither is Wheeler Yuta. They've never done anything to tell us that he has a Ring of Honor contract and not an AEW contract. So, like, it's a messy. And that's back to the whole issues that people have with Tony Khan's booking of AEW currently, is that it's messy. Things don't really make a ton of sense. Like, it's not very coherent. It's, if you're watching AEW this coming Wednesday with a friend who hasn't been watching pro wrestling, and you have to explain to him why the Ring of Honor champion Claudio Castagnoli is on AEW show, and you have to explain why he's hanging out with Wheeler Yuta, who's the Ring of Honor Pure champion, then you have to try and get into that explaining what a Pure champion is and how the rules are different for a Pure champion. And then they're hanging out with Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley, who are AEW guys. How do you make that make sense to someone? Someone not watching the product on a regular basis, how do you get that situation to make a lot of sense? I don't really know how you do it. And I think that's kind of part of the issue people are saying they have with current AEW booking, is that it just doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. I think that we have a lot of opportunity for it to make sense. But right now, I just don't think it does make a lot of sense. You have too much Ring of Honor stuff going on inside of AEW. And the Ring of Honor pay-per-view was a great pay-per-view. Don't get me wrong. It was really good. But I think you just have so much going on that's Ring of Honor focused that if you bring in someone who's lapsed and hasn't been watching, it's not going to make sense to them. They're going to have to explain a lot of stuff, and I think that's where people are, losing a bit of their excitement with AEW. Out the gate, you could show someone, hey, AEW's coming on. It's Tuesday. You watched Raw last night. You haven't watched AEW. It's on tomorrow. You're going to see stuff you haven't ever seen before. And they can tune in and they can catch it. And they're like, okay, these are great matches. Okay, things kind of make sense. These guys aren't getting along with these guys. Okay, cool. This is pro wrestling. Cut and dry. Now it's, hey, tune in on Wednesday night. What am I going to see? You're going to see some matches that are Ring of Honor matches. What's that? Okay, now you explain Ring of Honor. And then you explain that it's, some different rules with, the countouts. But then, it's 20 seconds, but they don't really abide by it. You take, tonight they had in one of the matches, they rushed in at the 9 count. And I do agree with the concept that it's not as exhilarating, which, you're going to have the newness of AEW kind of wear off for a lot of people, which is going to, in turn, not make that excitement be there. But I just think it's just, things have to be, they have to just kind of make sense all the time, and too many storylines are stopped lately, and too many storylines are going on that just don't continue to make sense. Again, like JAS as a faction doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. That they're focused on the whole sports entertainer thing. You don't even hear that much on WWE anymore. WWE is just what it is. They're not. They're now calling themselves wrestlers again. They say that they wrestle, and so the making fun of it doesn't really work now. They just asked you to about a best of 7 matchup with Roosh. You know, Lee Moriarty is a really great wrestler, and that's what you just talked about. He'd like to see Lee Moriarty move into the pure, the Ring of Honor pure title scene. And he just said he would like to get some more revenge on MJF. Wheeler Yuta looking to get another run at MJF. I think anytime they can get Yuta there, I don't know that you look at the pure title of Ring of Honor at the same level that you look at your AEW World title, and certainly hope that Tony Khan doesn't book anything to be that way. I think that you got to kind of allow the world title to be prestigious, and I think having it on MJF is going to keep it that way. You don't have MJF wrestle every week. I know there's going to be some people who may take issue with the fact that I feel as though it should be that way, but yeah, I don't think that your world champions should wrestle on TV every week. I think they should be kept special. I think at this point, they've always kept MJF being special like that. He's always been kept to being the guy who you don't see every week. I mean, he's just Cody's guy. You didn't have him wrestle every week. He could be involved in some stuff, but watching Max wrestle had to be on a special occasion. It had to be pay-per-view. It had to matter. It had to be important. It had to be to end a feud that he had been building week by week by week, and I really believe that's probably Max's design with his creative of the character. I don't know that I think anybody else booked that for Max. Probably Cody's influence on him, but now Joe is at the conference. See there with the AEW TNT Championship on the table, not the Ring of Honor title, so that's a little weird. So Joe's just saying he's the king of TV. He's going to be everywhere. He's going to be in the video game. He's going to be all these things. I think it's interesting that Joe's last spot in WWE was doing commentary in the rain, and he's being used so prominently in AEW. He's probably one of the most successful signees for AEW this year. Like guys who got let go from WWE and brought into AEW. I think Joe has done the most with that opportunity, really. He's walking around with 2 belts. He's the guy for TV for 2 separate promotions. Technically 2 separate promotions. But he's the only one walking around 2 belts. You look at some of the other guys who they brought in, and a bit of a hot take, I guess. I don't think that a lot of the guys who people wanted to see come to AEW, who were released from WWE, have really had great runs. I don't think necessarily that Bryan Danielson's run has been fantastic. It hasn't been awful. He's put together great matches, but the run itself hasn't delivered him a title, hasn't put him, a mainstay in the main event scene. He's put together great matches, absolutely, but nothing is going to compare. It's not going to stand a chance to compare to the Yes Movement run in WWE. That will always probably be the shining moment of his career. I don't know that he will do something that's going to surpass that situation. I don't know that I think that we'll see anyone do anything with Claudio that will surpass the bar in WWE. I think that was Claudio's best run. I think him and Sheamus as a tag team were fantastic. I think that they put together incredible matches, and I think that was probably the most over Claudio's been. And I don't think he will be more over than that in Ring of Honor or AEW. And I look at Joe, and Joe is as over as Joe's ever been. I mean, Joe's always been over. From TNA, Ring of Honor back in the day, to to NXT and WWE to AEW, Joe's been over. He's always going to be because he's just that character's the same no matter what. No matter what he's doing, he's Samoa Joe. Whenever he was on commentary on Raw, he was Samoa Joe. Whenever he was TNA, it's the same guy. He's the ass kicker. The only thing that probably didn't make sense was whenever they threw him in a suit on TNA. May have been Impact at that point. I don't know. But he's been asked about being the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion and what his titles currently mean to him. But I think Joe's had the best run of these guys who got released and came in. I really do. I don't know that they are going to throw him into the world title scene with AEW. Maybe they'll have him feud with Claudio for the Ring of Honor title. That'd be a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd probably like to see that. I think I'd like to see Joe and Claudio feud over the ROH title. He's talking about how he brings importance to titles that he carries and makes them matter. Man, if you had Joe do the whole, kind of like the Kenny Omega belt collector thing, but just have Joe doing it, why not? I mean, I would believe Joe versus MJF. There's believability they could put Joe over. I would believe that. I don't know that everyone would feel that way, that Joe's a viable contender right now and that Joe's a guy who could beat Max, but I certainly feel like we could have Joe defeat MJF. I don't know if I don't know. Let me see if I can get Mark to give his input. Hey, Mark, but what do you think about the idea of Samoa Joe versus MJF? Are you kidding me right now? Is this a joke? Is he joking right now? Okay, so Joe, yeah, Joe's a killer, sure, but he's not MJF. Maxwell Jacob Friedman is by far the man. He's better than Joe, and Joe knows it. So if Joe wants to step up to MJF, Joe's going to get knocked down. Okay, Mark. Again, we do not want issues with anyone named Joe who's Samoan. So let's not create any problems for ourselves. We already had the issue of you saying that Solo Sikoa is going to turn the bloodline, and that created some problems. So let's not do that. But I think we've had a good week of wrestling. Raw was good. Dynamite was good. It was just kind of building up to Final Battle, which was fine. I really think Rampage was a good night of wrestling. I think they put together some great matches for Rampage. Just kicking it off with the Mox match, and the amount of blood he lost in that match was crazy. It had to be the first match of Rampage, but Rampage was put together very well. But I just think that still have some great wrestling. I don't know what's on the agenda for Monday on Raw, but we did have last night on SmackDown, Kurt Angle had his birthday celebration, and they had Jason Jordan give him a birthday card and number one dad. So there's some long-term storytelling from WWE. They didn't just abandon that nonsense, so that's good. They also brought back the milk truck, and he hosed down the Alpha Academy. And Alpha Academy, Chad Gable, and Otis are still doing some great work. I mean, this Shoosh thing is still hilarious. So I think SmackDown was good too. So I have no complaints of the week of pro wrestling. We had some. There's been a lot of good indie shows. Wrestling Revolver recently was really good. GCW put together a good show. So if you have the Fight Plus app, I mean, you can catch a lot of great wrestling. You can also catch Grapple Fest. You have anyone who hasn't caught that, if you like Submission Grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Grapple Fest 14 is also on Fight Plus. I've watched that a couple of times now. It's just some next level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submissions. It's really, really good. You can also go on there and catch some bare knuckle fighting championships, BKFC. If you want to go back, our last episode was an interview with the new middleweight champ for BKFC, the Redneck Dave Mundell. Brand new champion there, and they're looking to do some great things. And it's fast-paced fights and really a good time. That's it for us today, guys. The Ring of Honor pay-per-view, very, very good. Shows a lot of promise. I hope they can secure a TV deal, and if they can't, I just hope they look to turn it into the YouTube shows. But only time will tell. Guys, please check us out on social media. We are at Don't Say the F Word Podcast. We're on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. On YouTube, it's the Don't Say the F Word Podcast. And you can find us on Spotify and Google Podcasts. Every so often on CastBox, but we're not going to talk about that. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Don't Say the F Word Podcast, where we do not use the F word when we talk about professional wrestling. And you shouldn't let your friends use it either. Jeremy's out.